let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer. If you're a fan of, razor-sharp dialogue, hilarious misunderstandings, and just electric tension, well, you're in the exact right place. Because today we're looking at Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, which actually serves as the brilliant, witty blueprint for the entire modern romantic comedy genre. We have to start off with English literature's most famous opening line. It is a truth universally acknowledged, you probably know the rest. But it's not just a catchy hook. Right from the jump, Austen is letting us know that this isn't just a story about fuzzy romance. It's about the highly competitive, high-stakes business of marriage. So let's get into part one, the ultimate romantic comedy. Jane Austen practically invented the whole enemies to lovers trope right here. Just look at the initial friction between our leads. On one side, we have Elizabeth Bennet. She has absolutely zero fortune, but she's armed with this sharp, playful, and fiercely independent mind. And across from her is Mr. Darcy. He commands a staggering £10,000 a year, which was massive money. But his wealth is wrapped up in some very serious pride and, honestly, pretty severe social awkwardness. Okay, moving on to part two. Marry well or else, the social stakes. To truly understand their journey, we really have to strip away our modern lens of marrying for love and examine the brutal economic reality of this era. Love was a luxury. Marriage was survival. The crucial threat hanging over everything is the entail. It's this awful legal trap that dictates Mr. Bennet's estate can only go to a male heir. Since he has 5 daughters, they inherit absolutely nothing, meaning the Bennet sisters won't just be lonely if they don't marry, they will be completely destitute and cast out of their own home. When you realize the threat of absolute poverty hanging over her children, Mrs. Bennet's relentless panic suddenly makes total sense, doesn't it? Her daily priorities are 99% matchmaking and maybe 1% complaining about her nerves. You really can't blame her for throwing her daughters at literally any rich single man who rides into their quiet country village. She's just trying to save them. This made navigating potential suitors a literal game of survival. Just look at Elizabeth's options here. You've got Mr. Bingley, super rich, incredibly sweet, perfect for her older sister Jane. Then Darcy, filthy rich, but totally arrogant. Then there's Mr. Collins, who literally holds that terrible entail over their heads, but is basically the 19th century version of a pompous, cringy reply guy. And finally, Mr. Wickham, totally broke, but incredibly charming. A complete walking red flag, though. Elizabeth's best friend, Charlotte Lucas, really grounds the narrative for us here. She reminds us that accepting a foolish man like Mr. Collins was often just a necessary, calculated move for basic security. She's 27, considered a financial burden to her parents, and this quote perfectly captures the sobering reality of what women actually had to sacrifice just to survive. All right, let's dive into part 3, the trap of first impressions. The central conflict all starts at a local dance. Darcy's infamously rude comment at the Meryton Assembly, spoken just loud enough for Elizabeth to hear, is the spark that deeply wounds her vanity and ignites her fierce prejudice against him. Tolerable, but not handsome enough. Ouch. Honestly, wouldn't you hold a grudge too? But the genius is that both of these characters are incredibly flawed. They allow their egos to completely mislead them. Elizabeth loves to think she is this amazing judge of character, yet she totally falls for Wickham's charming lies. Darcy, on the other hand, is so put off by Mrs. Bennet's loud boasting and the family's lower status that he completely writes off Elizabeth's brilliant mind. The tension just escalates from there, building directly to an explosive turning point. Despite his own better judgment, Darcy proposes to Elizabeth in literally the most insulting way possible. His massive arrogance crashes spectacularly into Elizabeth's absolute fury, and she rejects him flat out. It is an absolute train wreck. Which brings us to part 4, growth, pride, and prejudice. Surviving that disastrous first proposal is the wake-up call they both needed. It forces them to look inward and finally grow up. This is where the story pivots into a profound character study. Notice how the title literally maps out their exact issues? They mirror and completely misunderstand each other's deepest flaws. He's blinded by rank, she's blinded by her own cleverness. The morning after the terrible proposal, Darcy hands Elizabeth a letter explaining the real truth about Wickham's awful character and his own actions. After reading it, Elizabeth experiences this massive, humbling moment of self-awareness. She realizes her own vanity made her an absolute fool. Till this moment, I never knew myself. But Darcy's behavioral transformation matters just as much as Elizabeth's newfound humility. Later, when Elizabeth's youngest sister, Lydia, recklessly elopes with Wickham, a scandal that would literally ruin the entire Bennet family forever, Darcy secretly steps in. He uses his vast wealth to pay off Wickham's debts, forcing a marriage and saving the Bennets. He proves his love through action, which finally allows them to meet as true equals. Elizabeth has to prove her growth too, of course. When Darcy's terrifying, ultra-rich aunt, Lady Catherine, demands Elizabeth promise never to marry her nephew, Elizabeth flat out refuses to be bullied. Being called an obstinate, headstrong girl here is iconic. It proves she has grown way too confident to let class intimidation dictate her future anymore. Finally, let's look at Part 5, why it still matters today. Just look at Austen's toolkit here. She isn't just writing a fluffy romance, not even close. She is deploying masterful social observation to criticize the ridiculous class and gender expectations of her era. She hides a really biting social commentary right inside a deeply satisfying courtship novel. And that's why this explainer works perfectly on two distinct levels. On the one hand, it's a stark historical critique of a woman's economic reality, but on the other hand, it's the timeless, witty, emotionally intelligent blueprint for practically every modern romantic comedy we enjoy today. As we wrap up, we really have to ask ourselves, why do we still care? Why does this specific couple still resonate with millions of readers across centuries? What makes them the ultimate literary power couple? It's simply because they aren't perfect. They make terrible, embarrassing mistakes, but they learn from them and they actively do the hard work to change themselves for the better so they can actually earn each other's respect and love. They don't just fall in love, they evolve for each other. Ultimately, if you decide to explore this brilliant story, you'll find a captivating reminder that to find true connection, you must be brave enough to conquer your own pride and prejudice. You literally have to be willing to admit when you are completely wrong. So, if you were in Elizabeth's shoes, would you have the courage to change your mind?